So first off, Jabali Studio, the goal of the product is to essentially fill the role of being the studio, like the game studio, to fill in the other roles that might be going on there as you're trying to build a game. As a individual developer, an indie developer, even like a small team, oftentimes you're not going to have the resources that a larger studio might have. And so the studio can kind of fill in a number of those roles. For instance, if you are really into, say, writing, and you're all about the story in your game, but you don't necessarily want to spend the time doing the audio design or the visual design or writing the code, Jabali Studio can fill in those roles and pick up those pieces. Similarly, maybe you just want to write the code, but you don't want to worry about the story. Jabali can kind of also pick up on that piece. The goal here is to really enable creators to kind of achieve whatever vision it is that you might have. Like, what is the game that you really want to make that there's something limiting you and keeping you from making? We're trying to bridge that gap and let you be able to kind of create those games. So let me go ahead and share my screen so we can start taking a look at the product. I see that some people are having some audio issues. I want to make sure if anyone else is having an issue, please go ahead and raise your hand, speak up in the chat, and we'll try to get that resolved. Because we have kicked off. You should be hearing things. And you should be able to see my screen as well. So yeah, let's dive a little bit into the kind of the idea of what the process is, and then I'll kind of talk about the product and how I kind of fulfill those roles. So there's a lot of ways to tackle game development. There's a lot of different processes. The one that we kind of recommend in the general structure is that you're going to start with a concept. You're going to spend at least some time refining that concept. Often you'll refine that into what's called a game design document. The goal here is to really iron out what are the mechanics you're going for? What is the art style you're trying to achieve? What is really the experience you want your players to have? This is the time to kind of explore those at a conceptual level before you really start diving into the code. After that, you tend to dive in, and the first step is really to get that first prototype, something playable where you can start kind of seeing those ideas come to life, finding out whether or not those mechanics you're thinking of make sense. Jabali Studio is particularly good at kind of getting you to that first step, where you can have that game. You can even publish that prototype, let people start giving you some feedback on it. And then after that, you're going to kind of be in this more iterative process of adding features, testing, polishing, and kind of going on from there. And Jabali Studio can help you across that entire process, from concept all the way to publishing, and then even after you publish that first version, going back, adding features, getting the next version out. So let's take a moment and explore kind of what the different features that you're going to be able to see in the studio. And we'll kind of, once we step through those, we'll actually start talking about some specific kind of games. It's going to be for screen this project first, also a larger collection of games you might have. When you're starting out, there might be no games here, maybe just one, but you can certainly kind of expand that out as you work along. One of the options we also have here are template games. We're not going to focus on these games today. This is an experience that we also have on our website for creating games. This is more of a no-code experience. Although inside of Studio, we kind of take that experience to the next level and allow you to work with Bali, our AI agent, to kind of edit those games as well. The project is also going to let you kind of explore other games, see what other people have been making. There's going to be lots of examples out there. You can kind of play those all here within the product to get some inspiration. The last piece here is we have a collection of tutorials showing you how to use the product, how to kind of go about creating a game. We are kind of continuing to expand this. I think we've really released some more videos since even just the last time we did one of these classes. We will also work on taking both the first class and this one and kind of editing and polishing up into a nice consumable video to include in here as well. And our goal is to continue to expand this. So if you find that you have questions after this class is over, things that we didn't cover during the class, things that you'd like to see moving forward, please let us know, and we're happy to kind of work on adding those materials in there. And this is addition to, on our website, you can also find our blog and other resources as well, but these are the kind of the resources inside of the studio. Then the main kind of piece is once you actually like get into a game. Before we kind of create something from scratch, what I'm going to do is kind of walk you through a couple of these different games that we have here to show you how the product works, what that views look like, what are the different features that you have. So let's take a look at, say, this game. Okay. So the first thing that's going to happen when you open up a game, if you haven't previously been working on it, for instance, this game I had not been working on before. This is someone else's game that I have remixed. So this game, the first thing it's going to do is it's going to start just trying to like understand what your code base is. It's going to be intelligent. It's going to look at your project structure, your scripts. It's going to kind of give an idea of what's going on, try to understand what the vibe is, art style, everything, so that once it's done that kind of quick little piece, it's going to be ready to get going. And it's also going to give you some options that you can work on, maybe quick polish. There's more implementation that it can do. It's going to give you suggestions. The assistant can be quite creative if that's what you're looking for, and you're also free to be very direct in what you want. So to kind of give you an overview of the different pieces here, on the left here, we have that chat that I was just talking about. This is going to be one of the main ways that you're going to be interacting here. This is where you're really going to leverage all of the kind of intelligence and the different features that we have to really speed up your game development process. On the right-hand side here, you're going to see the game preview. This is going to be a live preview of that game. When you make changes, it can reload. Down here, you're going to have the live logging output, which the Copilot also has access to read and go back and forth and try to help you with the development. We also can see the build output if we want. Most of the time, you shouldn't need the build output, but sometimes it's helpful if you're having some sort of error going on. And so this window here is fully playable. So I can enter into this game. I can run around, play the game. The logs will be updating live as different things happen. And I can kind of explore and start thinking what's going on and iterate. In addition, we have some other features to kind of help you develop. Like for instance, we have a device simulator here, so I can see what this would look like in different screens. We also have the ability to like activate virtual and joysticks and so on if the game supports it. I'll stay here in the native view just so everyone can see a little bit better. Next piece we have here is your asset management. So assets are going to be one of the big things going on in any game. They're broken up in different categories. Right here we have images. We have some different audio pieces. There are going to be some 3D models as well. You can kind of manage any of them here. If you wanted to say, take a look at one of them, I can say take a look at, let's see, like maybe this button. I can look at the details. It'll kind of tell me just a high level what's going on there. I can also see the history to see what kind of how many commits are going on here. This one was uploaded once. There's no real edits. But if I'd edited the image, I would get a complete listing of the history. Right here, I can go ahead and replace, rename, remove things, whatever I need. I can also, if I'm unsure like what the purpose of a particular asset is, right here I can hit this Ask Bali button, and it will dive right into helping me understand what the role of this is in the game. It can help me regenerate things and make edits as well. So that's the asset pane. We also are going to have a full view of all of your scenes here. This is a Godot project. Jabali Studio supports multiple engines. Right now, the main ones are Godot and Phaser. We will continue to be expanding that list over time. Those are the main ones for now. So this is a Godot project. These are Godot scenes. And I can open up and expect them. Some of these are going to be things that are easier to edit visually. Other things are going to be, there's not necessarily a lot visually going on, so it makes more sense to edit in this text format. You also are going to have access to all of your scripts. So this includes pretty basic things like here we have shaders. This is the Godot shader format. Um, Same thing with the assets. You're going to have your kind of background here, be able to look at different versions, see how things are updated. You have a kind of a lot of options going on there. And again, the Copilot can help you with these. In particular, one of the things that we try to do is we automatically are scanning these and see if we can detect errors. If we do detect any errors, this Fix with Poly button was gonna jump right in and try to start helping you out. In addition to those GD shaders, we're also going to have our main scripts, which are our GD scripts. If you've never used Godot before, GD script is kind of a cross between JavaScript and Python. So it's indented like Python, but a lot of the syntax might also remind you of JavaScript or TypeScript. You don't have to type things. It's a loosely typed language, but it can often be helpful in terms of getting the different pieces of IntelliSense to work nicely. And this is a fully featured code editor, so I can search for things. If I want, I can find and replace. I can peek definitions, jump across to different files. So you are able to make whatever edits that you would like there. So the main things that are going on there. One of the other things that Bali is going to try to do for you is it's going to try its best to keep things like your README up to date, and your if you have a game design document, we'll be keeping those up to date with the current project structure, current goals, what are the different pieces and uh, mechanics and so on. So the documentation provides a little bit of an ongoing context that you can work with. In addition to those features, we also have some more kind of basic features. You can upload scripts, create scripts. Same with assets. I'm free to upload, drag and drop, browse my file system. We encourage you both to use the built-in generation features that Bali has. So those are going to be generating different sorts of images, audio files. We're constantly looking to expand that list as well for across different types of asset that we can work on for you. But you're also welcome to use your favorite tool. Maybe you're particularly good at building models in Blender and you want to import those in here. That would work as well. Kind of a dual ecosystem there where we allow you to bring whatever assets you want on your own and also to use Jabali to generate things. We also have some more technical features I want to just hop into for completeness before we start diving into some actual edits. Here we have kind of just like the basic information about the game. I could either upload a new poster, I can also ask the AI to regenerate one, update the game description. This description here is what's going to be used on the Jabali AI website to kind of describe the game. Same with the title. So when you're on that website and you're kind of on that Discover page or looking at the featured games, this is the way that's going to show up for you. We also give you a full way to kind of customize the AI. So we are working to have it be as flexible as possible. So we provide some built-in things. So like right now I'm in collaborative mode where it's going to be working back and forth with me, not constantly asking for permission to do things, but kind of a balance there. I can also put it in an autonomous mode where it's really not going to ask me any questions at all. It's just going to execute on whatever it is that I'm asking it to work on. In creative mode, it's going to be encouraged to kind of suggest new mechanics to you, actively suggesting things. Similar to autonomous mode, it's also going to kind of go out there and start working on stuff. And then finally, we also have a cautious mode. This is the one that you might be using, say, if you're more in like the polishing phase of a game, where you really don't want to make very many edits at all. You want to stay much more targeted in what you're doing. This is going to specifically kind of tune your experience to kind of match that expectation. Beyond that, for those of you who are familiar with writing prompts for AI models, we have this box here for custom instructions. So you feel free to kind of customize that behavior however you want. Maybe one of these 4 modes doesn't match for you and you want to kind of branch out. You can also use them in addition to the modes. And you can put in important reminders here about your game, anything that you want to make sure that the Copilot is always doing. You could, for instance, encourage the Copilot to rebuild the project more often if you really want to get kind of more immediate feedback on that side of it. Or you could say, you know what, I really don't care about you rebuilding as often as you are, so like do that less. Fully customizable, you can do whatever you want there. Um, we support a number of different LLMs under the hood. It's important to know that this experience is fully tailored by us. There's a lot of kind of customization we've layered on top of these models, but you are free to kind of go in there and look at different underlying models. We support a large set. We're constantly updating this. So if there's a model that you love using that you would love to for us to incorporate, feel free to reach out. Otherwise, we'll just kind of keep this list going on. As soon as models are released, we try to get them incorporated as quickly as we can. Okay, I'm going to pause here for a moment, kind of that we've gone through a high level of the features before we really start diving into the actual process of some different edits. Let me take a quick look at the chat to see if there's anything that would be useful here. Yeah, I say that we've been answering most of the questions here in the chat, but I want to kind of highlight a few things. Like one of the questions is, can you develop the whole game with the studio art, animation, sound effects? Yes, we kind of support that full set. Different aspects we're going to have continue to improve our support for. So if there's a particular piece that you're looking for that we're not doing a good job on, like maybe you want a particular type of animation that we don't quite support yet, yeah, feel free to let us know. The animations are definitely going to be the trickiest part right now. Definitely that and kind of on the 3D side, but we're continuing to kind of explore and improve those aspects.
Hey, Colin, there was one polygon or high count polygon assets. I believe we go up to 4K, right? For some models, could you verify that?
We go, I believe we have one model that goes that high. I think that's the upper limit. Depending on the type of asset you're generating and the underlying model you're using, it's going to vary. So if I asked it to generate a new image here, there's a Flux model, there's an OpenAI model for image generation. There's a Nano Banana model from Google. Each model is going to have its own restrictions. At a minimum, they're all going to support 1024 by 1024 image would be pretty standard. Some of them can go up higher to 2K, potentially 4K. Some of them are very limited. So I think the OpenAI models only have 3 potential sizes they can generate. But you're feel free to choose the model that makes the most sense for you. And beyond that, we have some tooling in there for modifying images after the fact. So if a model can only generate a particular set of sizes, but you need something in a different shape, the tooling is there that you can adjust those as well. You're also free to take one of the images that we have generated, open it up on your system, edit it, resize it, whatever kind of you need to do there.
Thanks, Colin. There were a couple of questions on being able to export the game and either open it in Godot or just be able to like download the files. The answer to that is yes. Colin, anything else you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, we have a kind of preliminary support for exporting the games, being able to open up that file system. We're looking to improve that support and kind of continue and seeing what that experience is going to be. But yes, we do have support there. I think also we have one question here about kind of larger contexts. Yeah, depending on the underlying LLM you choose, there's going to be a limit to how much context it can support. On top of that, we employ some context management to try and keep whatever thread you're working on kind of within those limits, automatically trimming, updating, managing it. Depending on the model you're choosing and its context size, there's potentially going to be stuff that is left out. As with any of these models, the longer you kind of are working on a thread, the larger it gets. You're going to start noticing potentially some lag when you're getting those responses. We've done a lot of work employing caching and other features to try and minimize that. So for the most part, you're not going to notice any of those slowdowns until you really get to kind of the upper limit of the model. In the future, I think I mentioned this in the chat, one of the features we're looking at is kind of being able to split out into multiple threads, multiple tasks. For now, we kind of have one functionality here, which is if something's happened, like you've gone down a thread with the Copilot and it's completely not what you want, Like it's either you were maybe prompting and having a long conversation about a feature and you just really don't like that feature anymore or something's going on there. We have a reset functionality up ahead that'll just kind of start that thread back out to the beginning. We do persist a number of context pieces there. So like your ideas for the design of the game, all of the files, all of the structure, that's all going to remain. But it'll let you kind of like restart that chat, which can also often be kind of useful if you've gotten stuck. One last feature I also want to highlight to everyone: we have a report button here. We are an early access product, so you will hopefully not experience any issues. But if you do, please hit that report button. You're also free to reach out to us on Discord or anywhere else that you have contact with us. Particularly during the game jam, please reach out kind of as soon as you're running into something, and we will work as kind of fast as we can to get that resolved. This report issue thing, you feel free to kind of describe what's going on when you're sending that report. Like I said, we'll try to get to it as quickly as we can. And this will collect any kind of like snapshot of data so that we can understand what the issue is that you're experiencing and try to get that resolved.
Hey, Colin, there's a request to get a demo for how to export the project for Godot. Maybe you can quickly talk about it. I know it's not enabled for everyone, but maybe we can just talk about how we can get that access for people that need it.
Yeah, so we're continuing to roll out that feature. One of the things you can see here is we have this Godot button up at the top that will actually allow you to open up the entire project in Godot. The project is already stored locally on your file system, so you have a kind of complete copy there. If you hit up that button, it's going to open up the Godot editor. It'll be there, and you'll be able to kind of use that full functionality. That's the case for the Godot games. The Phaser games are also going to be, again, stored on disk, and you're able to access that, but they are not. There's not an external like Phaser editor that we're connected with on that side. But like I said, this is a feature that we're kind of actively rolling out. If that's a feature that you would like to have access to, please just send us a ping, and we're happy to work on getting you access to that. So I see someone's asking about like where is Jabali kind of excel. We have a full set of documentation that's linked through the product. If you're having trouble finding that link, also just we can drop it in the chat. That kind of goes across all of the features here, and also kind of what X6's good at. I'd say we're pretty good at art generation. 2D assets can look kind of really great. Those are really solid. It's also quite good at coding, particularly it's good at UI elements in Godot. It can reskin or retheme UI elements, add complex menus, navigation between scenes. It is, in general, pretty good at the coding side. We also have music and sound effect generation. The sound effects generations are quite good. And as is the music generation. If you have a really specific art style or a really specific music sound style in mind, you might start pushing the limits. But for most games, you should have kind of all the functionality that you need there. And we're also kind of along those lines, we're continuing to add support for new models across all asset generation. And so as the larger AI ecosystem gets better at generating these things, we incorporate them directly in the product to kind of give you access there. One of the main goals we want to have for you is that as much as possible, we want you to be able to stay within the product. So we don't want you to feel the need to go somewhere else and generate an image. You're certainly welcome to go do that and import it in, but as much as possible, we want to give you a cohesive, complete experience where Bali, the agent, has access to everything it needs to assist you so they can understand that complete context. It's often useful in that sense because once I have worked with the AI to generate a concept, like for instance, this is the game that we worked on last time together. If you look at the kind of the visual art style here, when it came time to actually generate those assets, I didn't have to be very specific at all when I was generating them, because the I had already generated with the Copilot at the beginning a very detailed game design spec. So let me pull up that design spec real quick to give you an idea. I believe that's, yeah. So we have this design pillars document. We'd really gone through like colors, how we wanted the audio to look, how that visual style develops as the game moves on, what the vision is, how we want the controls to work. Because I've spent that time and kind of working with it, you get a really complete experience where I can just say, hey, I need a background image now. And it will immediately understand, based on the vision that we've kind of worked on together, exactly what I'm wanting. Versus, I feel like with a lot of external tools, you're going to have to bring that context over. You're going to figure out how to prompt to kind of get those pieces that you want.
Colin, there's a question in chat for 3D models. Do we support Maya? I believe that it's Blender and 3D Studio Max.
Yes. So I should say, first off, we have support 2 engines under the hood right now. We're supporting Phaser and we're supporting Godot. So on the Phaser side, that is a 2D engine. So it's not going to be supporting those 3D models at all. There's some ways you can kind of get around that, but that's really, we're only recommending that for 2D games. For Godot, you're welcome to build 2D or 3D games, and we support the complete set of models that Godot supports, which is quite complete. So it's supporting your standard FBX files, OBJ files. Most 3D formats that you're going to want to import, we should be supporting. I don't have the complete list on me, but we can kind of get that and share that for you. But I think we support something on the order of like 10 different 3D formats. So it's fairly complete.
Yeah, I know for sure that we support 3D Studio Max.
Yes. One of the features that I want to kind of go over here is, so this is a game that one of our developers in-house used Studio to build. It is a kind of just a 3D game. It's a kind of a stealth survival type deal. So we kind of have some dark themes, characters running around, chasing you. You can kind of jump, run. So this was developed by another developer on our team. So when I came into this project, I obviously didn't have the full context of what was going on there. So the first thing the assistant's doing is kind of, like I said, scanning, understanding what's going on. And then what I noticed is that this project didn't have really a complete design document. And so I was like, okay, based on kind of all of the information can you find, please go ahead and kind of produce that document. So it went out, it did that to me. I can now kind of look and I can see kind of the complete kind of idea of what's going on there. And the next thing I could do is I could really start making this game my own by saying, you know what, this was the original concept, and I can start iterating and figuring out how I might want to modify that. So one of the things that, if we don't have any current questions. I saw there's a question about 3D models, in particular animating those 3D models. That is a feature that we're currently working on. It is not currently available. Hopefully it'll be available soon, but we will keep you all posted with updates there. So yeah, let's actually dive in here a little bit. And I want to walk you through kind of the process that you're going to use to start creating your games. So for the game jam, you're going to want to start here kind of in this vibe code setting. You're going to want to start describing your idea, and then we're going to iterate on what that's going to look like. So let me grab a prompt here. So when I am prompting here, one of the things that I want to encourage you to do when you're working with our agent is you want to be very clear about not only what your concept is, but how you want the agent to respond to you. You're free to say something as vague as I could just say, inspire me. Like this is obviously about as vague as you could possibly get. The the Copilot will work with you. It will start giving you some inspiration, coming up with ideas. However, it's going to start telling you, like, yeah, you don't have everything that you need. But instead, I could say something more specific, like I want to build a 2D brick breaker style game using Phaser. I want the art style to be, let's see, colorful, but not overly bright. Start with a basic game design document so I can review the concept. I don't want that should be sufficient here. So a few aspects here that are going to help the system work better is I'm being very specific that I'm looking for 2D. I'm giving it a kind of an idea of the type of game that I'm going for, and I'm being specific about the engine. And then I'm starting to fill out any other details that I might care about. Like I had a preference about the art style here. If I had preferences about audio or something, I would want to start filling out those pieces. And you can iterate with the Copilot as well on these details. But the more you can kind of start here at the beginning, the better off you're going to be. So I can jump right in here. The Copilot's going to immediately start kind of filling in any of the details that I might not have really thought about. So the main thing that you have to decide at the beginning when you're going to start the project is your choice of engine. We have a number of different starters to take you along. They are, and the system will try to give you the best recommendation for what it is that you're asking for. So for instance, I asked for a Phaser 2D project. That's going to be the first thing that it recommends. A close second here, we have a more of an arcade style starter to get you going. This is going to be based on a particular design philosophy, the entity component system. Versus this is a very basic one. I'll get to kind of completely from scratch get to decide how to approach it. Even though I was specific that I was wanting Phaser, it's letting me know that this is doable in Godot. There's a 2D option there. As a quick note, if you're in this process and for some reason this was a complete miss, that you don't feel like it understood what you wanted, or maybe you said 2D but you changed your mind and you really want 3D, one, you can restart this conversation at any point in time. You can go back to the home screen, start again, or we also provide the full set of options if you really wanted to go choose something. Like we have a number of different kind of starting places to start with 3D games. I want to emphasize these are just starting places. Just a little bit of like project scaffolding. As soon as I select one of these, so let's say I select this arcade one, we're going to jump into that main editing screen, and Bali is going to immediately start looking at your prompt, looking at any additional like kind of context you provided, and it's going to start kind of customizing. The goal of this first step here is really to get you to a prototype as quickly as it can. Because we really want to kind of get you that first experience of being able to kind of see something on screen and kind of get moving. That's kind of like your starting place. Once you're there, you're going to start in kind of your iterative flow. And I really want to talk about here a little bit about the prompting strategy. So at the beginning, the pieces and the way you're going to want to approach this are really about filling out the aspects of your game creation vision that make most sense. Like, for instance, it's often best to start with a vertical slice prototype, where a vertical slice is going to give you a little bit of the art, a little bit of the mechanics, just try to like get your idea together. At that stage, you want to be very detailed with your prompts. You really want to work with Bali to come up with a plan before you start asking it to generate things. And then as your project progresses, you're going to swap more into a mode where you're going to be polishing things and where you're going to be doing much more targeted edits. And so there, it's going to be less about generating a complete plan of what you're going to be doing and more about being very specific about saying, you know what, I don't like this background, let's replace it. Or maybe you're building a game with a jump mechanic and you want to tune it a little bit. Versus a more complex ask where you're going to want to plan is if you were, say, changing from a single jump mechanic to a double jump mechanic or maybe a triple jump. That's when you're going to want to be more complete there. The other thing that you should consider as you're prompting is this starter that I selected is using, like I said, the entity component system. This is a particular way of designing a game. Bali is familiar with several different ways of kind of approaching this. You're free to kind of ask which ones it likes or recommends for a particular project, or if there's a particular one that you love, you're feel free to kind of prompt and tell the Copilot to use that one. Kind of having a clear idea in place of how you want to start talking about features can be quite useful to kind of jumpstart that process. For instance, if I go to this game here, I was also going to be using the ECS. One of the first things that I was then doing with the Copilot is coming up with this game implementation spec, which is going to really be like talking about like what are all the things that I want there, what are the sizes, what are the different interactions, really kind of giving this whole plan out before I started on the game, before I could actually get to here by having the whole thing going on. So this is that example, like I said, where we worked together with the Copilot, come up with this plan. Once we'd done that, I could be a lot more specific and just say, let's go make those changes. Like, we're good. Everything was happy. I was like, let's go. So before this, I was doing a lot of prompting, being very specific. Once we're done, once we're ready to start executing, I kind of no longer have to be specific. I can just give that approval and Bali will kind of start working on it, making those changes, working through things, resolving any bugs that it's finding as it's going on, and get you kind of to this final state. We're about just under 45 minutes in. I'm going to continue kind of talking about some targeted prompting and some specific changes that you can make through the features. Please feel free to continue to ask questions. And then in just a few minutes, we're going to pause to open up into a more general QA so that you can really kind of get into the specific features that you might want to know about. So one of the features that we can look at in these games is how to generate kind of, say, images. So right now I have the colorful bricks, which for this game makes sense. I kind of like that style. But let's say in a different game, maybe we want to kind of generate something more specific. Let's see. Actually, we'll just do this one. So I'm going to prompt this to generate me some 2D assets. Specifically, I'm looking at a background. I'm just going to get some brief visual direction here, because again, in this one, we already have a game design document. We talked a little bit about the visuals that we want, so we don't have to get too specific there. But I do want to highlight that in this game, for the most part, I'm liking these visuals. I want a little bit of something to put in the background, but I want to make sure it's not overwhelming the foreground. So I can make sure that's clear. So what's going to happen is that the Copilot is now going to start kind of generating these images for me, which in this case should just be one, but it can also generate multiple images in a batch. So whenever it's going to be generating images, you're going to be presented with this view here. It's going to give you just standard prompt. Once the image is generated, you'll actually be able to see it here. You have these advanced options below. Most of the time, you probably aren't going to care about these, but sometimes you might. It's going to tell you, for instance, where the file is going, what underlying model it chose to use for that generation. Like I said, we have kind of some different options here that we can choose from. We can set the size based on that. And if for some reason I wanted to run a background removal automatically on it, I could check this box. Or if I didn't check this box, I can also ask the Copilot later to go back and remove something. So for this one, one of the notes I want to make is that this size here, where it's going to work well for Flux, which is probably why I made this choice, both of these have much more limited image sizing that they're able to generate. And so if I swap over there, I'm going to have to kind of change the sizing. Like if I wanted to go here, I'm going to have to choose a size that matches. This model really only supports one size right now. And so I could just get a nice little square image. Once I hit generate here, it's going to start pinging our infrastructure, start generating that out, automatically adding it. And we can then get going. The next thing it's doing here is just decide that it's actually going to add multiple backgrounds for kind of different levels that we're going through. Part of my game design document was talking about a level progression, so it's going to go ahead and jump right on to the next one. We'll let it keep generating these as it progresses. In the meantime, I see that there's a question about particle systems. Yes, it does have the ability to work with particle systems. It does a decent job there. If we have time in a minute before the close, I can kind of show you how that works potentially in one of our 2D or 3D games. But yes, we do support particle systems. You're going to have your most success with some fairly elementary ones. If you really want something complex, you're going to probably have to give it some much more specific guidance. But it is possible to do that. Those particle systems, there's one that's native to Godot that is able to use. In Phaser, it has to kind of branch out a little bit more to kind of create its own, but it's also able to do that. Okay, so we have a background. That one looks good. Once it's generated those images, it should automatically start kind of incorporating them into the game for me. We'll just give it a moment to process and do that. In collaborative mode right now, so it's going to be kind of prompting me to kind of make some changes. Versus if I was in autonomous mode, it would have just gone ahead and done it on its own. And you can choose, like I said, which one feels the best for you. You can vary it as you're working for the project. All those settings are going to be project specific, so the instructions you have are going to be specific to the current game. And you're feel free to use different modes, different games, different stages of the game. So here we're making some updates. It's kind of proceeding along. And the immediate follow-up that it's doing here, which I appreciate, is that I had been very specific about how visually I wanted this to appeal in terms of it being like dim. And so the main thing it's doing is it's like, yes, I've done it, I've added it, but is this actually what you want? What modifications do we need to make? How do we want to kind of iterate there? So it's going to be fairly flexible in terms of that. Once these images are generated as well, you're no longer kind of able to edit them right here in the chat. I certainly can prompt to have them be regenerated. I can also go and I can see one of these images like directly in the chat. I can kind of see visually what it's looking like. It will kind of give me the full information here. It knows that it's AI generated, and I'm able to kind of interact with it there. It should just be the one version here. Again, it's kind of saying like, hey, I generated this image. This was the prompt. This is kind of what was going on there. I'd remove the background. That'll show up as another thing in the version history. This can actually be quite useful because if you ask it to remove the background of an image and then you were like, you know what, I did not like that, you can come here, select the prior thing in the history. It'll just revert that image back to before it removed that background for you. And I don't know if you can see, it is here and it is nice and subtle. Hopefully the contrast on your screens kind of shows this well. But I think it actually did a pretty good job of doing what I wanted. It nice and clipped it right to the bounds. I'm going to call that one a success. We're right at 50 minutes into this. I want to make sure that we have time for Q&A. I know we've been asking questions as we're going along. Are there specific things that any of you want to see? I'm happy to kind of explore specific features, show how different pieces can work. Really help you get anything prepared that you would want to know and know how to use for the game jam. Let me take a quick look at the chat. Make sure we've covered everything.
There's a question in chat for VFX, like particle systems. I don't know if I'm going to deep into that.
Oh yeah, I did briefly mention that one. So yeah, We support the Godot particle systems and there's kind of some equivalents in Phaser. It is able to work with both. It's pretty good at it as well. Oftentimes that involves manipulating shaders, and that we can do. Flipbook animation. So flipbook animation, it has the ability to do that. One of the features that we're working on adding is a little bit more ability for it to keep image-to-image edits and kind of context as it's generating multiple images. So it can generate a flipbook right now, but it will hopefully be much better at that in the near future. And then that kind of, I guess, answers the next question of, can I use a reference asset? Not currently. You're not able to upload a reference asset. It is a feature that we are working on and will hopefully roll out soon.
Is there, Colin, but you can upload your own custom assets into the project, right?
Yes. Yeah, you are able to upload any assets as you would like. I think the question was specifically using that and like sending it to an image generation model as a kind of basis to generate something new.
Right.
And that feature is forthcoming. See, someone else is typing. We'll give them a second to kind of add that question in there. In the meantime, while people are typing, oh, actually, there it is. How does debugging look? Yeah, so let me actually open up a game. In this game, there are actually a couple of things that still need to be fixed. And so one of the first things that the Copilot actually says to me is like, hey, it notices that there's an issue with the game manager and is suggesting that is the thing that it should start investigating. So when you are debugging, one, it is going to be proactive about potentially identifying issues, inspecting those. It will propose to you a plan of how it can go about fixing that. Like here it's saying like I can run a diff, and I can start trying to see like what the problem is. It also, when it builds the project, if there are any warnings or errors here, like here we have a couple of things that showed up, it will automatically see those, and it will essentially prompt you to say like, hey, do you want to look at that? As you can see here, it's specifically saying, hey, do you want me to build a playtest and start trying to figure out some of the errors? It is not able to play the game directly, but it is able to look at the build logs and look at the output logs. So as you're playing, you can kind of talk to it. It can look at those logs and start trying to figure out what's going on. One of your most effective debugging strategies is going to be working with the Copilot to add in those kind of like logging statements. So if I was playing this game and I would say like, let's say my character was just falling through the floor. In this game, that's not an issue. Like, so we have the physics set up nicely. But let's say that was going on, and I kind of give that prompt. One of the things that the Copilot is going to suggest to you is to add in more debugging statements so that kind of you're getting a live view of what's going on with the data. It will then read those statements and try to kind of diagnose with you. You can get that feature to work either specifically by talking to it about the logs, and it will go automatically look at them, or as in many parts in the product, you'll see this kind of this Ask Copilot, Ask Bali button. And that will also, anytime you click that, whatever thing you're looking at is going to start analyzing and explaining. So here, if I'm clicking on it, it's going to start analyzing the logs, particularly looking for any errors and seeing what's going on there and what it might need to do. I hope that's the question about the debugging. Okay, we have one more question. So can it make a save system? Yes, it is perfectly capable of making a save system that works either in Godot or Phaser. Both of them have their own kind of tooling set up to do that. So in Godot, there's a whole method for saving things. This game, I think, already saves some state, and it saves it to the user's kind of browser by default. That feature works well. We're working on a more kind of robust API so you can actually store things to our infrastructure for persistence across different browsers. But yes, saving to the user's local browser works on all of the platforms. So yeah, we're almost an hour in, but we have more time. So feel free to kind of ask any questions in there. And in the meantime, I can also show off kind of some additional features. We've covered most of the major ones, but there are definitely a few more aspects that we could look into.
Yeah, we're also happy to just hang out and answer any questions in chat. You know, we have time, so feel free to like stay longer. Colin, there's a question in chat about game saves. Does it save the player data on the browser?
Yeah, we were just talking about that one. I was saying that both Godot and Phaser fully support save systems. They are not going to do it by default. You do have to kind of talk to the Jabali about wanting that feature. In particular, you could include that in your game design document at the beginning, or at some point you could kind of prompt it to add that. That's definitely going to be an example of a feature where you're going to want to have a plan going in of how you're doing that persistence. So I would highly encourage kind of in your prompt being clear about what you want to store, how you want it persisted, so that it can kind of best help you implement that feature. One other thing that I want to mention is that when inside of one of these games, one of the things that I can do is publishing. So once I'm ready and I have a version here, I can go here. If I wanted to say update the title, description, or anything, I can have the AI regenerate it. I can edit manually, same with the poster. And then I'm able to kind of go ahead and publish the game. So once the game is published, that version is going to be stored as a restore point. So after I've published this, I can copy the link, open the browser, etc. But it's also going to be here. Like you can see now that I am at version 1 of the game. It says that I made it just now. If I click this right now, nothing's going to happen because this is my current version. But as soon as I start making modifications, it will detect that I have a new version. This number up here will kind of appear saying that there are unpublished changes. And then I can go ahead and publish a new version, in which case both versions will be there. Or if I start making those changes and I'm like, you know what, this was not good. I have really kind of gone off the rails here. I don't like this new version I'm working on. I am able to revert to a prior version, and it will just take me right back, restore that version of the state, and then I can kind of either republish that old version or I can just start making modifications from that prior save point. So I can restore both the entire project that way. I can also look at any individual file. So if it had just updated my main.js script, I can go here, look at the history, and restore back to a prior version if I need to. Like this version is the one that's currently saved. I can see that it's tagged saying that was the version I published, but there are some minor changes there, and then I can kind of revert back to the very, very first version. Let's see, we have one more question in the chat. Can we implement multiplayer? Not currently. Some of the games that you can build on web have some multiplayer support. And for those, if you kind of started with one of those templates and made modifications, you're kind of able to work within that multiplayer framework. But we do not currently have a full multiplayer SDK exposed. We are working on getting that out and documented, and we'll kind of post to the community as soon as that's available. That being said, that's for like multiplayer machine to machine. If you wanted to do local co-op within a game, for instance, if in my Pong game I wanted there to be two paddles where one paddle was controlled by WASD and the other was controlled by the arrow keys, it is quite good at kind of able to do those local settings. I've made kind of several games with features like that. But yeah, in that SDK that we're working on rolling out, the starting features there are going to be things more along the lines of matchmaking, leaderboards, kind of syncing the state there, and we'll kind of expand that to include more features as we go along. But it'd be great to know specifically when we're talking multiplayer, what are the main features that you're looking for, so that we can make sure that we're we're tailoring our efforts to kind of match what the community is looking for. While you're thinking about some more questions, briefly, one of the things that I want to show you is that I mentioned the writing support. For really narrative-heavy games like our interactive story games, we actually have a complete full story mode where we can see kind of the progression of different chapters. I can even open up a particular chapter, see the graph of what's going on. I can click on a particular node, update text. I can kind of swap who's speaking a particular line. There are kind of a lot of options there to work with that. If there is branching, this looks like a fairly narrative or a fairly linear one. But yeah, there is some branching kind of at the end of like, oh, this narrator is going to propose a choice, and you can choose different options. And these mutation nodes are essentially telling you that you're going to end up going to a different part of the story since this one branches. So this is a jump to particular chapters. Like I said, lots of different features going on there. Kind of depending on the different games you're working on, you might kind of see different features. The core experience, though, that we recommend for the game jam is going to be this kind of vibe code experience, starting here, showing them what your idea is, and then jumping right in.
Colin, for the game jam, did we also cover versioning and rollbacks?
Yeah, I was just talking about that a little bit. I would recommend, as you're working on your game jam project, to frequently publish. Like anytime you get a feature that you're happy with, I would go ahead and kind of publish that one. We are not going to consider, like until the game jam is open, you're free to continue to make changes. So if you work for the first hour of the game jam and publish that version, and then end up publishing like 10 more versions by the end of the game jam, we are going to be looking at the final version, whichever one it is that you're like, yes, this is when I was happy, this is when I was actually done. Is there going to be a theme for the game jam? No, we do not currently have a theme set for this one. We've done some themed smaller jams in the past, things on different holidays and so on, but we do not have one for this jam. So yeah, as I said before, we're kind of at the original time that we had allotted, but I am happy to stay on for a while, continuing asking questions. If there are particular features that we want to explore, happy to do that as well, if there are specific questions anyone has.
Maybe we can keep building on this game.
Yeah, we can do that and kind of explore it. One more question on the game. For the game jam, is there going to be a limit on how many prompts we can send to Studio? So yes, we have kind of pricing tiers to the product. Everyone is going to get premium access for the game jam. So as soon as you're signed up, we should have already granted that for you. If there's something going on there, let us know. That will give you, I think the number is 500 prompts. And to be clear, that is 500 times that like you're prompting the Copilot. In our experience, that should be more than sufficient to get you through the game jam. If you are running into an issue and you're running out, let us know and we can work with you on it. For asset generation, can we upload images to share as a reference instead of a text prompt? Yeah, I think we covered this one a little earlier. We do not currently support the ability to use a reference image in your image generations. We are working at adding that feature, but we will not have that one for the game jam. Looks like maybe 3 or 4 people are writing up some questions as well. So I'll give everyone a chance to type up before I dive into anything. Can we upload 3D models with animations to use? Yes. You are free to upload many different 3D formats. We support around N, I think, in Godot games. I don't have the specific list on hand, but all of your like major formats, so GLB, GLTF, OBJ files, FBX files, most common formats that you're going to come across we would be able to support. Can we implement database for game logic or some other stuff from DB in Jam? So if you're looking for a database instance that's going to be shared across users and instances, no, we won't have the support for that. If you are looking for just a internal per user database, yes, both Godot and Phaser have the ability to kind of support kind of data stores and persist those for a single user across sessions in their browser. Yes. The version that is available now for you should be 18 beta, and that is the same version. If you aren't currently on that version and Studio hasn't prompted you to update it, just let me know in the chat. Sometimes it takes a little bit for those updates to roll out. I believe we rolled that version out yesterday, so it might not quite have propagated. And this version will be useful for the game jam. We are hopeful to get maybe one more kind of like bug fix version out tomorrow before the game jam starts. We'll let you know if that happens. And as soon as those updates are available, you should get a notification within the app. And if you're not getting that notification, you think there's a new version or you're seeing a new version on the website, you can also download that version if it's there, or just restarting the app should prompt it. Yeah, I see a couple people saying that they haven't seen the update yet. I'll take a look. It's likely just a propagation thing, but we'll make sure that that's showing up for everyone. So as everyone's kind of typing a few questions, I'm just going to make a couple of modifications here. Kind of going to one of the questions earlier about the debugging. I noticed we had an issue where the ball didn't bounce properly. So I tried to be specific about kind of the behavior that I was noticing, and then it's going to dive in and start seeing what it can do. And in this case, it seems to immediately detect what's going on without need to really dive in too much. So it's just going to make that modification directly. If this was or perhaps if the assistant Dan issue was or the issue, it would have spent more time doing analysis. But because it already has this file in context, as soon as I point this out, it goes, oh yeah, this looks like the issue. As a minor note, you'll notice that in Phaser games, the preview is going to update automatically as soon as the changes are made. In a Godot game, when it makes the change, it's going to prompt you to rebuild. That's just that process is a little heavier, so we kind of give you the option there. We made some progress, but now I can give it an updated kind of specifics on what went wrong. And I see there's a few more people typing, so we'll let those questions come through. And I'm happy to stay here kind of as long as people have questions. So we have a question. In prompting section, many times I face the issue that after typed prompt enter button disabled. So what you should see is that after I have typed a prompt and it starts working, you should see this stop button where I'm able to interrupt the copilot. And while it is thinking, writing files, generating assets, etc., this will be disabled. So you have to make sure that resolved before you're able to type again. Now you can see I've kind of gone back here. If, however, what you're saying is that nothing is currently happening, you don't have the stop button here, and it's still disabled, please hit that report button, and I will take a look at that because that would be a bug. Hopefully that answers your question. But do let us know if you're still experiencing that issue. I do also encourage you to make use of the stop button. This is really just, you just think of it as an interrupt. Particularly if you're using autonomous mode or something and the copilot's going on and you notice it maybe just going in a direction that you're no longer happy with, feel free to interrupt, reprompt. Anytime that there would be an actual kind of issue going on, it should be highlighting the error box in here, and it'll let you know that something went wrong and give you a retry button to reset that experience. The other time I should say is that when this dialogue is active, when I'm generating an image, I am not currently able to type. I have to kind of resolve the dialogue in that image generation before I'm able to type again. One thing I should also mention is I briefly talked about these suggestions here. Whenever you're at a place where you're able to prompt, these suggestions should be showing up with some relevant options. So like here, the Copilot actually proposed two different options. So we have this kind of approach A and this alternative, simpler approach. And so the suggestions I'm going to see here are specifically about those. One thing to note just from a UX perspective, the simple text that you see there is not what's going to be sent as the prompt. When you hover, you'll be able to see kind of that complete prompt that's going to be sent, as if you typed it. So oftentimes there's going to be a good match there, but sometimes you might want to be careful about what it is that it's saying. And for the most part, there should be relatively kind of relevant suggestions for you. So we have another question here. Whether or not the version of Godot we're using supports GDScript only or the C# version as well. Currently, we are using the version that supports GDScript only. We can potentially look into supporting the C# version as well if that's something that people are looking for. Those builds are a little bit larger for when we're publishing on the web, because it has to include kind of a whole runtime to be able to be compatible with the C# part. That is definitely something that we can look at if there's kind of community interest there. But no, right now we only support the GDScript version. A number of the kind of design choices we've made are about making the games particularly accessible to players, particularly through our online platform. And so all of them need to be compatible with the web builds for Godot. Like I said, that's something that we're open to exploring other options as well if people are looking to wanting to build like native versions of the apps, or if there's particular features that you're looking for that we're not supporting. Well, everyone's kind of thinking if they have more questions. One of the things I wanted to show in that other game, I just asked for a background, and so what I got was a static background, which made sense for that game since everything's relatively still and there's not a moving camera. In this 2D platformer, instead of asking for a background, I actually was trying to be more specific about asking for a background with parallax. And so far background, near background, and foreground image. And it moves them at different rates, kind of creating this parallax effect. That's why you can kind of see different pieces kind of moving with the ruins. This is an example of why it was important for me to be specific about that prompt. The game design command about the art style. I didn't have to be specific in my prompt about that piece. However, because I specifically wanted this kind of parallax effect with how different platformers work, I needed to be specific about asking for that piece. And so you want to kind of be thinking about what's in the context for the AI and like what are the changes that you want. I did not, however, need to explain how parallax background works or anything like that. The prompt I used was very simple. I just said like, hey, I just want this to add a parallax background here. It immediately understood what I wanted. The model is intelligent enough to know a number of very common game design concepts. It's also familiar with a lot of popular games out there, so if you don't necessarily know the terminology for something, you could say, hey, I want a moving different layered background similar to Mario. And it would automatically figure out, like, oh, you're looking for a parallax style background and kind of get that working for you. So feel free to kind of reference visual or gameplay or mechanics things from games if you're not familiar with necessarily the naming of them. And it should be able to identify that and help you kind of build out what you're looking for. It can also be fairly creative too. For instance, if you want to be specific and say, I want a cross between Mario and Brick Breaker, like it's going to try to find a way to make that work. I think one of our developers one time was trying to push it, and they asked the Copilot to make a 4D game. And you know what? It went out there and it got creative and it made something that kind of counted. I think it used kind of time as an aspect that you could manipulate in the game instead of also just being able to move in 3 dimensions. So there's certainly a lot of creativity there that you can do by kind of working back and forth with the Copilot. Okay, it looks like our questions are starting to die down, but there's still a kind of a few people here. Happy to keep working through things if there's anything else I would like to see. Also happy to kind of answer more questions if there are. Otherwise, we'll probably wrap fairly soon. So yeah, I'll give you all a moment to think if there's any further questions you have. You can do both sprite and shader-based animations. And it's pretty good at both of them. The limitation with the sprite-based animations is going to be you'd really need a good image set for that. So the Copilot's fairly good at figuring out what you want if you're asking for sprite animations. Like it's going to often generate you just a sprite sheet that is going to segment up and grab the different pieces of and kind of swap between those different states. Yeah, it's definitely capable of doing that. It's also fairly good at writing shaders for your shader-based animations. That's also how it would do a number of particle effects. I should clarify, the shader-based animations only applies to Godot games. Phaser doesn't really have a shader system per se. You are able to get it to like ask it to write like a WebGL shader or something, but that's not necessarily natively supported within Phaser. So it's going to be a little bit more, maybe some technical complication there. But yeah, within Godot, it definitely would support both, and then within Phaser, it definitely can do sprite animations. And one other note on the sprite animation piece, it can generate that sprite sheet and it can drop in those things and animate it. It's also able to use a sprite sheet. So if you have some sprite sheet that you really like that you wanted to use, it's able to do that. The other piece of animation and like creation that it's also able to do is it can, particularly in Phaser, well, both Phaser and Godot, also create some fairly rudimentary sprites from primitives. So by just drawing some blocks, drawing some different shapes, for instance, in Phaser, can use the Canvas API directly to draw things. And so you could draw a little character that way and animate it. It's able to do that as well. Those are obviously going to be much simpler looking things. So maybe if you're going for some sort of like 8-bit style, that would work for you. All right, if there are no more questions, I think we're going to go ahead and end it here. Thank you all very much for attending. We appreciate you taking the time. Hopefully you found this interesting. We will look to kind of continue doing these in the future, kind of post Game Jam. And best of luck in the Game Jam to everyone. Like I said, feel free to reach out. Discord, the report button within the app, any other way that you have kind of contacting us. I think some of you have our support email. Yeah, any issues you might experience with the Game Jam, please reach out. We will have people on call to respond and get back to you and try to resolve any issues you might experience as quickly as we can. All right, thanks everyone. I am looking forward to seeing what everyone creates. Best of luck.